Hello and welcome to the Financial Wellness Hour. I am your host, Hirsch Sermon, and I am thrilled to have you here today with me on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network. This show is for those wanting to learn more about how to create financial wellness, and we will be looking at different life cycles and exploring them financially and emotionally, because personal finances usually are not about the money, rather they are about the emotions associated with your finances. Our goal is to look at how to prepare for these life cycles, how to thrive on the other side. And although we might have a specific theme or topic for each show, I can assure you the financial strategies we talk about are applicable to many other situations you may be facing as well. Although we are going to be fairly general in our discussions, we would love to hear from you to make it more relevant and more personal. So please do call in, or you can reach me through my website, lifecycle.financial. That's lifecycle.financial. Going solo can mean different things to different people. Divorce, death of a loved one, perpetual bachelorhood, and I'm sure there's many other ways that you can look at it as well. We plan on covering all of these and more, just not on today's show, so continue to listen to future shows as we will be covering these topics. And please do share your thoughts on future topics you would like to learn more about. Today, we are going to focus on financial scams and jams. These scams and jams have been around for a long time. These are not new. But as times and circumstances change, they do become more focused and more specific, and people have been devastated financially from some of these scams that we've seen. We are navigating unprecedented times, as everybody knows, and we are cut off in so many ways that has made us even more susceptible to being scammed or maybe falling into a financial jam. So how do we identify them? How do we make sure we do not fall for them? We listen to the next 40 minutes to the Financial Wellness Hour, and that's exactly why we are so lucky to have Jackie Melinger from My Personal Bookkeeper on the show today. Jackie, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you, Hirsch. Good morning, and thanks for having me. I am really excited to be here to talk about financial wellness and especially scams and jams.
Great. You are looking at people's finances in a very different way to how most people do when they work with people, whether it's usually managing their money for investments, whether it's doing their taxes, helping them build a budget. You look at it in a very different way. Can you share a little bit more about what a daily money manager does?
Sure. We look at the whole package. We're not just specializing in one area. We're looking at actually getting them referred to people who can specialize and help them, but we can help them at home with their personal financial needs. So at My Personal Bookkeeper, we call our daily money managers client advocates, because when they work with clients, they truly advocate for them in many ways. We can help people pay their bills, organize their mail, their paperwork, their files, and we help keep track of their tax documents. So when they turn it in to the accountant, it goes in a very organized manner. We can also help clients review all of those insurance explanations of benefits, or EOBs as we call them, and match them up against the many bills that they receive from medical providers to make sure that things are getting paid correctly. These are just examples. We always help our clients save money by reviewing their statements and negotiating with vendors. We can work in a client's home. We can work remotely. For clients who might have some cognitive decline as they're getting older, we're there to support them. We're providing a cognitive exercise by sitting next to them while they are actually looking at their bills and writing their checks, and we're just making sure that they're doing it right. And it really helps them. It helps them to keep their independence. And at the same time, we're watching over to make sure that they're paying their bills on time and watching over their finances for them.
I think it's so important. I'm going to give you a personal story right now that literally has happened to me in the last about 5 days. I received a bill. You were talking about those explanation of benefits, or EOBs, and matching them up and making sure, being their advocate. I received a bill for $400 from a medical service provider. And I looked at this going, I would have thought insurance would have covered this. And when I called them, they had not put it through insurance, and it would have cost me $400 if I just received a bill and paid it. When I called back, as I said, 4 or 5 days ago, they said, oh, the insurance covered everything. And so this kind of a service really can save tremendous money, especially if people are not understanding what they're looking at, which the medical bills sometimes can be very confusing. So I think that's an enormous benefit that people can get from working with a daily money manager. So
Yeah.
I think that's great. There's always been a risk for scams. As I mentioned earlier, these are not new, especially in our senior population. What types of scams do you usually see out there?
Well, we can all fall victim to scams, but many of the people putting on these scams are preying on the elderly because they can fall for tricks a bit more easily than a younger person for several reasons, which I'll explain later. But here are some examples of some scams that we typically see. A common one is getting a call from the IRS, and they say, you know, you're delinquent in your tax payments, and if this is not remedied, we're putting out a warrant for your arrest. It's a pretty scary call to get, and they leave you a voicemail. And you know, I've received those messages. I know my uncle has, and has become scared by it. Lots of people. So people should know that the IRS does not contact you by phone, and they would never initiate a payment over the phone with you. You will always receive a notification of an error in your tax return or a missing payment through the regular mail. And you should always share those notifications with your accountant or your trusted financial advisor first and have them check into it for you before you just go ahead and pay something. Another example of a scam is an email you might receive from a charity saying there's an emergency situation and they need your support right now. Just click on the link in the email to make your donation. I even knew of a situation where the scammers found the name of a clergy member on the synagogue's website and sent emails that looked like they were coming from that clergy
Wow.
member and that he was having an emergency. Pretty scary because people wanted to, you know, help their rabbi out. And so there's this link in the email to just go ahead and send him money. When you click on the link, you might be installing a virus on your computer, which will allow the sender to access your private information, or you may just go further and give them your financial information. So you should always stop what you're doing. Don't do it through the link in the email. Call the charitable organization or go online and do some research on them. Ask someone you trust to help you with this. If you want to make a donation to that organization, go ahead and do it on your own terms, not through that link. Mail them a check directly. Just don't use a link that was sent in an email. And then another example is the one that I find the most upsetting. It's the grandchild in trouble scam. And I've heard of this happening many times too. An elderly person receives a call from a girl who sounds distressed. And she says, "Grandma, I need help. I'm in trouble." And Grandma says, "Julie, is that you?" Giving away the grandchild's name. And they go on to say, "Yes, Grandma, it's Julie, and I need trouble. My parents will be so mad at me. Please don't tell them, but I really need your help. Can you give me your credit card number or can you wire me money right away?" You can understand how someone is just thinking about helping their grandchild at this moment, and it's just heartbreaking to see. And I think those usually come in at night when somebody's groggy and not really thinking straight, and they just hear a voice and fall for it and think it's their grandchild.
Wow, that is it's as creative as it is disturbing, that last one especially.
Yeah.
And I think there's a common denominator, you know, with all of these is you can say, "I will call you right back," and call the main or regular number because this is an unsolicited call. So I think there is definitely a way to protect yourself, but these are people thinking of scams all day long, and how do they really hit home? And they probably test them out and all the rest that comes with that. So
Right. Once
being
it
aware,
works, they just keep going.
yeah, being aware, I think is so important. This is it's kind of crazy, but at the same time, it's so important to be aware that this is out there and to protect yourself.
Absolutely.
So you said you're going to talk a little bit more about maybe why seniors are so much more susceptible to falling to scams. Can you share a little bit on that?
Sure. They're not as familiar with email and internet techniques as we are. They may use the internet and they may use email, but they're probably not, using it as much for as many things as you or I are, or certainly our kids. So you or I might look at an email and see that it's coming from a strange domain. So it must be fake, or we might notice that that Google icon doesn't look quite right. And so something's wrong with this email. But a senior might not realize those things and might not notice it. And so it's easier to fall for that email because it looks real to them. Additionally, certain names just scare people, and one of those is the IRS.
Yeah.
When they were younger, everything was handled by phone. So it doesn't seem that strange to get a phone call and have to just take care of something over the phone. Whereas many of us have given up our home phones and have stopped using the phone to do business, and we do it all in writing. So we would think twice about if we did receive a call like that. Also, we are reading a lot online. We're always, any free moment I have, I'm looking on my phone, I'm getting alerts. And seniors aren't necessarily doing that. So they're not seeing all the news articles and the things that come up warning you. I'm signed up to receive an alert every day about financial scams going on around the country. And obviously, that's not something everyone is signed up to get. So
Right.
they're not as aware of what's going on. And then seniors tend to have less social interaction, especially during these last 6 months,
Right.
which is so sad and devastating. Isolation and loneliness can cause people to react differently. When you have less social interaction, your cognitive abilities can start to slowly deteriorate. Most importantly, there's a fear of losing their independence and being embarrassed. Seniors don't want to tell their children that they messed up, that they fell for some kind of scam. They fear that their children are going to step in and take over their finances or move them to a nursing home. This isn't necessarily the case, but it is a definite fear for many. So they
Right.
don't turn people in, they don't talk about it, they keep it to themselves, and then things just get worse and worse.
So, you had mentioned about not being familiar with a URL with that web address, and it reminded me about, I think it was about 2, maybe even closer to 3 years ago. The scam that was going on was that there were charities, and I say that in air quotes, requesting donations, and the charity name, let's just say it was My Charity, usually would have a .org at the end of the URL, and these would come from a mycharity.com. So people weren't necessarily looking at the ending.
Right.
They were just looking at the name, and it was the name that they knew that they donated to was common, and they would click on the link and go through, and everything would seem fine. So again, I think just being very careful and looking at some of those basic details
Right.
as they come through. And then again, as I think everyone avoids or does not feel comfortable when they get embarrassed. So definitely the fear around that can play in significantly, I think.
Right. Right. What you described is such a small detail that most people wouldn't catch, whether you're old or young.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can be any age and fall for something like that for sure.
Yeah. You really have to be watching out. That's why just don't click on a link in an email. Don't right away, think about it, research, look it up.
Right. Right. Take 2 minutes and see. You're 100% right. And if it is so urgent and you say, for example, it's the IRS, and you say to them, I will drive over and hand a check to the local office.
Yeah.
If somebody turned around, for example, there and said, no, you cannot do that, you have to pay by credit card, that's a scam if they're pressuring you in that fashion. There's just no way that the IRS would say, no, we're not going to accept a personal check being walked in. You have to pay by credit card, especially because there's a merchant fee on a credit card. They're going to lose money as opposed to getting it all. I just think people need to be vigilant sometimes in being their own advocate, or stepping back a little bit from a surprise like that. The IRS as well, you kind of know if you owe money or not to the IRS, especially. That should not be a huge surprise, and especially if it's several $1,000s, because for most people, that's a significant amount of money. And so just getting a call out of the blue in that, and the pressure behind it in itself should be an indicator, I think, in many ways as well, right? So
Right. And it can just really get your heart rate up hearing it. So you need to take a step back, take a breath, and think, like, why would I owe money? That doesn't make any sense.
right.
Let
No,
me
absolutely. I hear that for sure.
don't do anything without talking to someone else about it first. Talk it through and think about it.
Right. No, that's definitely good advice, to just step back, take 10 seconds even just to compose yourself and think about it. I think that's very helpful. And you mentioned, some of the details. It doesn't matter what age you are. And I've seen scams on the internet targeting all ages.
Yes.
This year has brought about many, many new challenges. Um, are there people out there who are taking advantage of this pandemic to scam, whether it's our young, our old, our seniors, whomever? What are they doing right now with the COVID and the pandemic?
Unfortunately, there are people taking advantage of this terrible situation that we're all in. And I just feel seniors are suffering enough from the fear of coming in contact with the coronavirus and the isolation it's caused for them. So now to have to fear additional scams that they have to watch out for, it's terrible. It's not right. But these scammers are either calling or emailing, and they're offering good deals on masks and other personal protective equipment. And again, it's, give me your credit card right now and I'll send it to you.
Right.
Also offering vitamins that will help prevent COVID-19, which there's been no proof of anything like that. Test kits at home, or even offering an at-home vaccine that we can send to you. Just give me your credit card and you'll be the first to be vaccinated. You know, people who are terrified and who are living alone and they're isolated and this is just awful, they're so lonely, they want to believe something's going to help them and something's going to get them out of this situation. So in that moment on the phone, they might believe it and they might say, okay, great, I will take these vitamins and see if they help me. Yes, I want a test or a vaccine, great. But again, as I said before, you have to take that step back and think about it. What have you heard in the news? There is no vaccine, there is no vitamin. Um, Tests are hard to get and they're unreliable. So really think, and why is someone calling you? You should never give your credit card or bank account information during one of these calls to make the purchase. And for seniors, you should always stop, hang up, get information, talk to your physician before you take some kind of vitamins or vaccine. Talk to other trusted professionals or family members before making these types of purchases. Excuse me. Never make the purchase on the spot just because someone called to offer you a good deal. Tell them you need to think about it and you will contact them. Just as you said before, Hirsch, get the name of the company from them, ask for a phone number. If they can't provide that to you, then obviously there's something wrong. Research that company before doing anything else. Ask around about it. And if it's legitimate and there's something you want to order, then you can do that on your own terms. Again, never give your financial information to someone who calls you.
So, we mentioned earlier that people are probably sitting around, and I don't say this in a glib way. They're thinking, how can we make money? And unfortunately, it's not in an honest way. This is a perfect example. They are taking a at-risk or vulnerable population to the pandemic,
Mhm.
and they're looking at, I don't know, their top 10 fears or whatever it might be, and saying, how can we make money? How can we, use these fears? And you mentioned quite a few of them. It wasn't just one. It was a vaccine. It was protective gear. It was the protection of, very specific vitamins, and being able to really play on what's out there and those fears. It's very, very scary. And I do want to continue this specific topic, but we are coming close to having to take a break. Jackie, can you share, how can people get in touch with you? And then we're going to go to a break real quick.
Sure. They can go to my website, www.mypersonalbookkeeper.com, and contact us through the website. There's a way to get information, a way to sign up for our newsletter. Our phone number is there. Again, it's www www.mypersonalbookkeeper.com, and bookkeeper has 2 O's, 2 K's, and 2 E's, if that helps.
We are going to take a break. We will be right back. Hi, welcome back. We are on WGSN-DB Going Solo Network, and this is the Financial Wellness Hour. I am here with Jackie Melinger from My Personal Bookkeeper, and we are talking about financial scams and jams. And we have covered mostly quite a few different scams that are going on, some just in general, some very specific to the pandemic, and seeing just how creative people are getting related to these scams, and how much more vigilant than ever before we ourselves need to be in stepping back, thinking through, does this really make sense, and not clenching onto the fear that comes sometimes that they are really playing into, especially in today's world and uncertainty. We were just talking about how they are, for example, with the pandemic, targeting seniors, where they have such a vulnerable population with lots of fears, listing out those fears and attacking every single one of them with a scam to make money, which is so unfortunate. And hopefully people are hearing this and are going to be able to step back. I think the key takeaway was that I took anyway, was being able to do the purchase if you decide you want to do a purchase on your own terms, and take a little bit of time, and it doesn't have to be much, to get a little bit more educated. Somebody calls you out of the blue, you've never heard of it. Hey, do you have a website? Can I look at that a little bit more? Looking at the news and understanding there is no vaccine out there, or there aren't no vitamins out there right now that have been highlighted to the public that says this works, go out and take these vitamins or get this vaccine. And so when they are pushing something like that, just to kind of put your knowledge and understand there is a fear of getting it, and just taking a little bit of time matching those together to understand. So just kind of a recap of the first half of the show real quick. So I think a popular term is the sandwich generation, and this applies to people who are raising a family right now, but also have elderly parents that may be needing help, or they involved in their help in various ways. Sometimes kids are not in the same city, so it might just be a phone call to see how mom or dad are doing, but other times they are very involved in the taking of their care. What do you have any suggestions, thoughts, or advice? What can you share with the sandwich generation? How can they protect their parents right now?
Well, it's tough, especially since it's so hard to see them right now, but we're all really busy. And even though you're busy, you need to check in regularly and look for signs of depression or cognitive decline. Those are difficult to hear on the phone. Our parents are good at hiding it, and they can keep it together for a short conversation. I've had clients who, couldn't come to town for about a year, and everything sounded fine on the phone because they had short conversations, and mom or dad was good at hanging up quickly. And they came into town and found that mom was repeating herself. She couldn't go more than 10 or 15 minutes without telling you the same story over and over again. So since a lot of those visits are impossible now, it's good to make use of video methods like FaceTime or Zoom, if you can teach your parent to use it, or have somebody go through a window and teach them how to use those things. When we do those video calls, we can try to look and see if they look unkempt, which is, we're all a little more casual now, but unkempt is different, and it may be very atypical of your parent. Have them walk around and show you things in the house, ask questions. And does the home seem messier than usual? Are they not able to keep up? Do you see piles of paper laying around? Maybe ask them a question about their mail to see if they're actually going through the mail. Try to keep them on that video longer. Don't let them hang up after 5 or 10 minutes. Find ways to keep those conversations going. The lack of socialization that older adults are experiencing, it's just not healthy. So let's try and keep them active in some way. Involve other family members in the call so there can be more conversation. Watch a show together while on video. Just say, hey, mom, let's watch this together and talk about it while we watch. or have your kids come on and do a performance or something for them, but keep them on for longer. You'll see more about it, about what's going on, and pay attention to what they're saying. Are they repeating themselves? Are they having trouble remembering what you told them? Don't correct them. Just listen. This isn't a time to say, Mom, something's wrong. Or, Mom, you told me that already. You should just listen and make sure they feel that they can talk to you and tell you if something has happened or if something doesn't feel right. Because as I said, they have a fear that you're going to take over or say they need to go to a nursing home. So make them feel comfortable enough to be able to talk to you.
Right.
And yeah, sorry.
Go ahead. Sorry. No, finish up.
You have to have some difficult conversations. You have to make sure you know their financial situation. You should know about their investments, their expenses, their insurance policies, and most importantly, make sure they have an estate plan and that you know how to contact their attorney and their accountant. Be sure they've signed a power of attorney for healthcare and for property. Now might be a really good time or a good excuse to check on those documents and make sure they're up to date, since we're all worried about getting sick. You know,
Right.
my husband and I did that with our kids in March when the pandemic began. It was time to review our healthcare power of attorney and make sure we had everything set up. And we even started sharing passwords with our oldest daughter just because we didn't know if we might end up in the hospital or something.
I love that advice. I deal with people and I'll ask them, do you have an estate plan? And they'll say, yeah, I have a will.
Mhm.
And there's so much more to an estate plan than a will, because a will is only if, God forbid, you pass away. What happens if you become incapacitated? There are decisions that need to be made, health, financial, and others. And that's why the large estate plan is so important. The other thing that I do notice is, people haven't updated their will, even if they just have that will or that package, in 10 or 15 years. And sometimes, the child is a minor and now they're, 30 years old and they haven't updated that will. And many of the things in there, in that that estate plan don't even apply anymore
Right.
sometimes as well. So
I
I
think
think that's great advice. And I love the advice of having more than one person on the phone or on the video. It not just extends it to be able to really observe and watch how mom or dad are doing, but you can also both kind of see the same thing, I guess,
Mhm.
if there is a noticeable decline, and you can discuss it with somebody who's actually seen it, as opposed to anecdotally repeating it to somebody once you've hung up. So
Right. That's
I think all of those are great ideas.
mhm. And I think it's important for people our age to really review their will and their estate plan too, because many of us wrote our wills when our kids were really young and
Right.
things have changed. And now, at our age, our kids are old enough that they can be our power of attorney or, it's just time to review and update it.
I agree. I'll tell you, I was dealing with a client probably about 8 or 9 weeks ago now. It's probably at least 2 months. And I asked them, when last did you review your estate plan? And they were like, oh my God, because their kids were little. Their kids are now in their 30s and 40s. So it was almost 20 years ago. And the person who actually would have been the custodian of the parents should something have happened had themselves passed away about 6 or 7 years ago. And so you, with all the right intention of putting something together, but it absolutely is something that should be reviewed periodically. It doesn't have to be reviewed every 6 months or a year, but definitely it should be timely. And every 3 to 5 years, I would say at least review the basic terms of what you have to make sure they're still relevant, for sure.
Yeah, that's good advice.
Yeah. So what scams do you see? Sometimes they get highlighted by the media, they go away a little bit, they come back. What scams, or do you ever see scams that are recycled?
Sure. As I said, financial scams are so successful and so
Yeah,
prevalent because they often go unreported, and seniors seem to be an easy target. So, when the word gets out, as you said, they seem to go away for a little while. People hear about it and beware. But a while later, a scam that was successful will come back, and it'll just be updated for today's time. So, one example is the selling of fraudulent aging products. These were often sold in paid commercials late at night, and they would sell creams and ointments that were sure to take away your wrinkles and your age spots. When you called to order, you maybe didn't even realize you were agreeing to a subscription, and it arrived month after month.
Oh,
And there's no contact information in the box. So it makes it very hard for you to cancel. You can't figure out who you should call or how you should cancel. And it
right.
takes you a long time to do that. The updated version of this is now on social media. You click on an ad and it's about, CBD oil that will help you, or
Right.
that works just like Botox. And again, you're signing up, you might be signing up for a monthly subscription without even realizing it. Now you've got to try and, find what the email that came to you confirming your purchase and what name was it under. And it's very hard to figure out how to cancel.
Right. Wow.
Yeah. And then,
Again,
yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
they're just very creative in what they're doing and playing on the latest phase and all the rest that comes with that.
Right. And, CBD is such a hot item right now. So,
Yeah.
and you don't know what quality you're getting when you just order from a Facebook ad or.
Right, absolutely, and there are definitely different qualities and different qualities of product when it comes to CBD, just like everything else. So,
Exactly.
one thing that I just remembered, and it's not really that it gets recycled; it's more that if we purchase a home, do not do it very often. So it might be every 7 years or every 10 years that we buy a home, whether we're upgrading, whether we're downsizing, whatever it might be, where somebody will send you an email the day before closing, 2 days before closing, and change, and again, I'm putting it in air quotes because it's not true, they will change the closing instructions and have you wire your money somewhere else. And I know that there are people that have sent $80,000, $100,000 to closing, and it went to the wrong place, obviously, because it was a scam. And so that's another thing where people need to be very, very careful. If something like that is not coming from your mortgage broker or your bank that you are taking the mortgage out with, you would want to be very careful. Again, step back. It might be legitimate. It probably not. Let me give a call and just protect yourself a little bit there as well.
Right. It's the same old. Take a step back. Think about it. Does this seem right to you?
Right. Absolutely.
Yes.
I'm going to change topics a little bit. We haven't really covered, and we are three-quarters way through the show already. I'm going to change the topic a little bit to the jam side of our show and working with younger families. It's challenging enough to raise a family without a global pandemic and such an unknown outlook right now. So many families have found themselves having difficulty with financial security right now. Do you have any suggestions for how someone raising a family can plan for their financial success?
Sure. Whether it's now or anytime, you should always be thinking about saving for your future. And this is a particularly challenging time. We all want to save for college and for our futures, and still making sure to have an emergency fund. One thing I always recommend is having a qualified financial advisor to help you create goals and methods to reach those goals. People in this age group of the sandwich generation, they're really busy. They're taking care of their kids, they're taking care of their parents, they're working hard, and they usually have a lot of other commitments too, volunteering and doing things at the kids' schools and so on. So it's really difficult when you're that busy to keep an eye on your investments or to understand them well enough to achieve success. So it's really important, and it's worth having a relationship with a professional who can guide you on this.
Right.
Another thing that's really important is putting money into some savings, and something like a 401k, if your employer offers it, is a great way to save for retirement. And you're leaving money on the table if you're not taking advantage of the full employer match. So
Absolutely.
it's really important to try to do that, even though money is tight. You'll be glad you did it. Something that sounds so simple and obvious is to pay your bills on time. It's so important. And that just seems like really you need to point that out. But when you're swamped, it's easy to forget or to let the mail pile up. You're so busy taking care of everyone else that you're going to come back to that. And before you know it, you're hit with late fees and interest charges, and you're starting to ruin your credit score. So really important to be keeping up on that stuff. And if you're not checking your credit card statement every month, there's a good chance you're paying creeper costs like what, those subscriptions that won't go away. Or you signed up for
Right.
3 months and then you forgot to cancel it at the end, and now you're paying for it month after month. So that's really important. I mentioned an emergency fund, hard to do, but you should really try to be putting money away for it, to have an emergency fund that will last you at least 6 months in case you lose your job, you're furloughed, you have a medical emergency. It's hard, but this is where budgeting and keeping track of your expenses comes in really handy, and it's so important. And then finally, it's really important to start a college fund for your kids when they're, as young as you can do it. If you can do it right away when they're born, it's great. And put some money in each month. Even during these hard times, if you have to decrease the amount that you're putting in, still put something in, because it adds up and it grows over the years. And
Right.
it's another instance where your professional advisor can help you choose the right vehicle and make projections to let you know what you should contribute. But from someone getting ready to send their third child to college next year, I can tell you, you will be really glad that it is.
I can imagine. Firstly, Laura Bloom, thank you for that comment. I appreciate this has actually been fantastic information. So thank you, Jackie. I appreciate that. And really quickly, that comment about paying your bills on time is enormous. And I will say that people don't understand their credit in general. Thank you, Richard. Again, another great information comment there. But I would say that, and this is not mine, this is actually the credit bureau's, roughly a third of your credit score is actually based on your timeliness of payment. There are 5 main factors, but a third of your entire credit score is based on that one factor. So very, very important to keep in mind. Somebody just asked us on the show there, how do you find a financial advisor? There's a couple different ways, Rami, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. One is you can actually reach out to me. I can guide you on that as well. You can reach me through my through my website, again, lifecycle.financial. There is a blog on there on how to pick an attorney. A lot of what is applicable in that will apply as well in interviewing a financial advisor. You do want to know that they're aligned with you, that they understand, and they are understanding your needs, and not kind of slotting you into, I'm 50 years old and I have 2 kids or 3 kids. And all of a sudden they say, oh, I know exactly what you need. They need to understand you as you, not as a demographic as well. So again, please do reach out through my website and I can guide you more. Unfortunately, we only have about 4 minutes left, and I do want to learn more about My Personal Bookkeeper, and also how the company My Personal Bookkeeper helps others. So Jackie, if you can share a little bit on that as well, I'd really appreciate it.
I'll try and go quickly here.
Sorry.
So for seniors, our client advocates help them keep their independence. And as I stated earlier, it can be a cognitive activity for them. It helps them to stay on top of their bills. We don't come in and take over. We come in and work with the client. Now, in some cases, people might just want us to take over, and we can do that too. But we help them review their mail, and we go through everything, all their statements with a fine-tooth comb. We've stopped many from getting caught up in a scam by recognizing for them. We've recently, in the last month, helped 2 clients avoid or figure out that they had been scammed in a Social Security. It was just awful. And I sometimes say, when you hire a tutor for your kids to help with their homework, they react so much better to the tutor than to their parent. And in that situation, your parents react so much better to working with a professional than having their children come in and take over their finances. And as you said, we also work in conjunction with estate attorneys, financial advisors, and accountants. And so we help to get the work done that they need. If the attorney needs some papers signed, sometimes they just send it directly to us, and we bring it to the client, get it signed, and bring it back to the attorney. And it just helps make things go faster, and it's more efficient. And then at tax time, accountants really love when they receive their clients' information from My Personal Bookkeeper Client Advocate, because it's totally organized And we have tracked down every form that they need, and it saves the accountant a lot of time.
Well, I can tell you from that perspective, doing taxes, that people leave a tremendous amount of money on the table not being organized.
Right.
Whether it's a deduction that they're allowed, a donation that they made, whatever it might be, if they don't have those records maintained well, they lose money. And so just there alone, I think that's an enormous benefit that people are getting, let alone the fact that they are being taken care of. Their credit is being protected. They're paying on time, where they're not having to come out of pocket with late fees and interest and all the rest that comes with that. So definitely a myriad of benefits that can come with working with a professional as well. Plus, I will add, which you didn't say, I might not be as PC as you, a lot of people and relationships can get hurt when kids come in and try to help their parents. It can become a little adversarial. So again, I'm going to ask before we wrap up, what is the easiest way to get in touch with you again? And then if you have any last thoughts, about 30 seconds would be great.
Sure. So the website will give you all the information you need. It's mypersonalbookkeeper.com. You can also reach us at 847-972-6822. We also do work remotely for people, so you don't even have to be in the same town as us if you're willing to do that. But I think it's really important, no matter what, to have a plan, no matter the age, and to revisit that plan annually to make sure it still makes sense and you're on track. You should have some trusted professionals in your life to help you. We can't all be an expert at everything, and it's important to get the help you need so that you can maximize your time and your savings. It never pays to be penny wise and dollar foolish. Investing in professional advice is a really good investment in your future. So
I agree with that. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you've seen the comments flashing by. I did even see a couple questions that I wasn't able to even get to. So for those people who did reach out and I was not able to get to them, please do reach out to us, either myself through lifecycle.financial, or you can go to Jackie at mypersonalbookkeeper.com. I'm Hirsch Sermon, your host for the Financial Wellness Hour. Please reach out to me, as I've just mentioned, lifecycle.financial, or you can reach out to Jackie Melinger from My Personal Bookkeeper, our guest today. I look forward to you joining me on my next show, Pamela Savino, who created Living Authentically. Thank you so much. Looking forward to the next one.